Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on. And welcome to the Across the Pitch 3rd Anniversary Extravaganza. We're the show for people who think EFL was a Christmas movie starring Will Ferrell.
Oh boy!
Today we return for the first time, and you may have heard a voice in the background there that we haven't heard in a while. That's because today we welcome back the original co-hosts of Across the Pitch, Aaron Ayers and Matt Robards. Welcome back to the show, guys. Great to have you.
Yes, great to be back.
What's going on, man? This is this brings back old memories.
It really does. Getting frustrated with technology on Tuesday or Wednesday night. That sounds about right for me.
Yep.
Well, what we're doing here with the 3rd anniversary special is I've decided to kind of go back and bring in everyone who has been a big part of the success of the show over the past 3 years. We're very excited because we're only about 400 streams away from 50,000. And I'm pretty sure, Aaron, when we started and recorded that very first episode 3 years ago, I don't think either one of us thought that 50,000 streams or this is episode 245. That were
amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, really, the concept goes back a long time before that. I think, if memory serves me correctly, it was 2014 when we first started talking around this sort of rough concept, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it was that kind of discussion we had around the 2014 World Cup, where I. At that point, I guess, kind of had an idea of why isn't there a Super League? I think the question I kind of came up with was something along the lines of why does Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney not play in the same league?
They still don't, by the way.
They're both in England now.
Right. Where's Wayne Rooney playing at these days?
Well,
that's right. He's not.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, we brought along Mr. Wizard Matt Robards over there.
That was episode 10 that Matt joined. So
I'll tell you what, he was a credit to this organization because, man, we were just garbage, really.
No,
and I mean that in the best of terms. I mean, all right, I'm sort of thinking back to some of those early episodes, and one that sticks in my mind is definitely the first one with Scott Brown, where I was woefully underprepared for that, but we still managed to pull it off pretty well. But Matt, he just sort of came in. He had the stats, he had the vision, he had the understanding of the game that really sort of solidified this crew, I believe.
Without a doubt. And speaking of Scott Brown, he is going to be part of this anniversary episode. He will be coming up later in the show. But Matt, you have parlayed your knowledge into a high school coaching position here in Phoenix. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to and with your coaching?
Yeah, I mean, during COVID, I got an email via my kids' schools. They're a part of like the Great Hearts school system, and they were looking for a boys' high school coach. So I applied and started coaching last year with them, and we had a really good first year. It was wild. There was 3 months of practicing before we ever kicked off a game, really? And we weren't even really sure if we were going to have a season. At one point, they had just canceled all winter sports here in Arizona, and then after some uproar from parents and students, they kind of brought it back. And so we had a truncated season in January and did really well. Went 8-4, made it into the playoffs. Unfortunately, we got booted in the first round, I think, due to some poor officiating, but that's part.
You were just trying to follow after Phoenix Rising, and
that was my motto, right? Run through the regular season and then kind of stumble into the playoffs. So that's kind of what happened, and so now we have the season just kicked off at the beginning of November, and man, I got a good group of boys out.
Awesome.
Yeah, some really good talented boys that I think could go play at the next level for sure.
So you mentioned that you had 3 months of practice last year before you played any games. I'm thinking that maybe with it being your first season, that might have been kind of a blessing in disguise because it gave you time to put your system in.
Yeah, it was very helpful in that regard. Just being able to work with those guys a lot, and kind of come in and just, hey, we're gonna play possession ball. We're gonna press high and we're gonna run, and they picked it up and we did well.
That sounds like a bit of an Arsenal sort of tactic there, mate. No bite. Okay, cool.
Maybe more of like a sorry tactic, but yeah.
Do you smoke the 4 packs of cigarettes on the sidelines or anything like that?
Is he still smoking? I heard he quit.
Those. It was surprising to me how nervous I got for games, and I'm not playing at all. I think I was more nervous than a lot of the boys, so I can see why that dude probably smokes that much, but I don't do that, so I did not.
What gives you the nerves, Matt? Is it getting the results, or is it just not copping the ire of the football parents?
I think it's just getting, you want these guys to play well. You want to go out and win, and I'm a competitive guy in my nature, and there's just that pride of, okay, we've worked hard. I want to put you the best foot forward, and I want you guys to be able to be successful. So yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's just it was crazy, man, but it's been really, really fun, and I've learned a lot about the game from some of these kids that have been playing club their entire lives.
That's fantastic, and we're really excited to hear that that's going so well for you. And before we kind of jump into the rest of the episode here, I did just want to give a quick rundown of everyone that we're going to be talking to. After Arran and Matt, we have the one and only Ross Devonport, who is the color commentator of the Greenville Triumph. He's previously been on the show. First, when Arran invited him in, we did the infamous rugby. Since then, Ross has joined us when we had some Greenville player interviews. He also joined us when we were doing the worst signings shows. So Ross is the one guy who's ever participated on Across the Pitch. It's actually
Yeah, go on. Sorry, I cut you off there, but I was going to say he's also probably the one guy on Across the Pitch who we've actually met in person too.
Yeah, that's true, because we did meet him at the Phoenix Rising game, and I was also going to say he's the one person who's actually gets paid to be a sports broadcaster. So he's the one professional that has given us a little bit of credibility there when he comes on. We also have Abdulai Suburu, who is the Ghana football news head everything. He's been on the show quite a few times talking about Ghana football. Also the head of the Accrington Stanley Supporters Club of Ghana. Speaking of the Accrington Stanley Supporters Club, we'll have Peter Leatham, chairman of the Accrington Stanley Supporters Trust. He's the guy who has gotten a lot of the Accrington Stanley interviews lined up for us. Has also made a couple of guest host appearances when we had the Bobby Grant interview, for instance. And then after Peter, we have Jonny Hibbard, who you guys will remember from the Belarus episodes, also the Stevenage episodes. He's a big Stevenage guy, so we'll be talking to Jonny. And then when we wrap up, it will be with Tony Robinson and Darren Woodhead, who are, of course, the current co-hosts, with Tony doing a lot of the active Accrington Stanley players interviews, and Darren, of course, doing the Legend series. So we'll basically have everyone who has hosted at least more than a couple episodes will be on. And then we also have our very first and favorite guest, who Arran mentioned earlier, Scott Brown. He's going to be joining us. So we have just so much coming up here and what's going to be a third anniversary episode. And no better way to kick it off than with each of you guys who we kicked off the show with to begin with.
Yes. It's you know what, it's been a pleasure being part of the show, and I love my role in it. But I have to say, I love the direction of it as well, Phil. It's become a real Accrington Stanley podcast, and that's brilliant because, I think you've certainly brought the Accrington Stanley named, and it seems to be taking off really well. And the Masters series and the guests that you have on there are excellent. I don't have much more to say about Accrington Stanley apart from, who are they? So I was happy to relinquish the reins there, if you will. I'm well impressed with the direction of the podcast, Phil.
Welcome back to the Across the Pitch third anniversary extravaganza. I'm extremely excited for our next guest because it may be the only person that I've ever met in the world who follows more different sports than I do. And that is none other than Ross Devonport. Who you first may have known as the color commentator for the Greenville Triumph, and he has come on the show a number of times since then, talking about everything from his beloved Bournemouth to the infamous rugby.
Yes. How can we forget?
So Ross, thank you first and foremost for joining me here for the third anniversary special. And how are you these days?
Thanks for having me, Phil. Yeah, congratulations on the anniversary. Listen, I have my own little podcast on the rugby side of things, and I know how hard it is to continue to do these things on a weekly or even bi-weekly basis. And I'm sure the Accrington fans out there and all of the fans from across the pitch appreciate the effort you guys put in. And yeah, I'm doing well, thanks, mate. Yeah, just winding down after the USL season. It was a busy season. Did a ton of games, more than I've ever done. I did color, as you said, for Greenville Triumph, and then I did play-by-play for the first time when I wasn't doing Greenville games. So it was a very busy season, but I learned a lot, and already looking forward to 2022 now that we just had the championship game this past weekend.
So I'm going to ask you, do you have a preference between play-by-play and color? Which one do you prefer?
So I've been asked this question a couple of times recently just by the Greenville Triumph owner who I met for the first time in person on Saturday. And I said, the guy that initially gave me the entry into the broadcast world, Mike Friedman, I worked with at CBSSports.com. He sort of runs the production side at Vista WorldLink, who does a lot of the games for USL. And he asked me to do play-by-play. This was back 4 or 5 years ago now. And I said, Mike, I'm not sure if my brain works fast enough. I've had a few concussions over the years playing rugby, and I'm not sure if play-by-play is going to suit me. But I think he actually knew something back then, because I enjoy the color. It's a little slower, but I'm not the most analytical when it comes to soccer in the world. I just like to see, watch what I'm watching. I don't like to think too deeply like a Devon Kerr. But so I really enjoyed play-by-play. I started doing it college-wise a couple of seasons ago. Which is obviously a little different because you're actually live at the venue rather than where we do it remotely. And I started to get into it, and I really love doing the play-by-play now. I think almost more than color. I obviously love my role with Greenville and working with my play-by-play guy, Chris Makoviak, who's a savvy veteran at this time.
Yeah, he's great. I love listening to you and him together.
Yeah, no, we've had Mike did a great job sort of pairing us up. We're very similar. We're similar in our sort of laid back, but he's a very good play-by-play guy. And I've got better. We had one incident this year where I missed a goal because I was reading ad copy and had the ad copy on the table rather than holding it up, which I've watched Chris do 100 times. I've never thought about it. And then I put my head down at the wrong time, and the one team was just knocking it about at the back, and they lost control of it, and forward Madison ended up scoring, and I missed the goal. But it won't happen again. You learn from your mistakes. I have great production staff behind me that was ready to help and tell me what had happened in my ear. So we covered it. But no, yeah, I certainly have a lot of fun doing it. You get to do the goal calls. That's the best part, I think, of broadcasting, right? Is that you get to do the goal calls.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's kind of the part that everybody remembers. Have you gotten a signature goal call yet?
I have not. Somebody laughed at me because I've done some college basketball good friend of mine, Neil Rule, who I met through USL Soccer, he has one where he says, of course, because there was a former 3-point star at Oakland University where he broadcasts that just was a 3-point machine. And of course, sort of became Neil's signature call. And I ended up with yup as my signature 3-point call. And Neil actually approved it. But soccer, no, I tried not to come up with a signature call, really.
Mark Alberts has made a whole career out of yes. So I mean,
he has. I think basketball lends it because there's a lot more things to get excited about in basketball. Yeah. Sometimes I think in soccer you're waiting for that goal, and I think if you try to predict what's going to happen and what you're going to say, I don't think it sounds authentic. So I've had moments where I've been shocked by a goal and it's sort of been like, oh, it's in, or it's in the back of the net, and I'm trying to get away from that and just do it a little more naturally. And I had some good ones this year, and I had some bad ones. And I think just as I still sort of grow into this surprise career, I don't say career, but surprise side job of mine, it'll continue to get better. But I like to do it a little more naturally and not just do the standard, it's in or it's what a goal, just trying to go with just naturally what pops into my head.
I've always been partial to the term "puts the onion in the bag." So I mean, if you want to put that one in consideration,
that's an old Tommy Smythe one. I don't know if you remember Tommy Smythe, Phil. That's an old Tommy Smythe one, yeah. In the back of the old onion bag. Yes, maybe I'll pull that out this year.
But I would love to hear that. You'll have to let me know if you pull that out. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, and welcome back to the 3rd anniversary Extravaganza. Now, right now, I am mid-afternoon. It's about 3:15 p.m. here in Phoenix, Arizona. It is definitely evening, closing into night in the UK, where our next guest, who you will remember from our Belarus special episodes, also our Stevenage episodes. I know that our Accrington fans probably aren't real big fans of the Stevenage stuff, but it was some of our best stuff. I mean, what we learned about Stevenage history in those episodes was absolutely amazing. And then during the original first lockdown, when the Belarus League was literally the only soccer league in the world that was still going, Jonny Hibbard came to save the day and joined the staff for a short time during the lockdown. Actually, it wasn't all that short. I think it was about 6 or 8 months that we did the Belarus episodes for. And then after that, we did the Team of the Month Stevenage. That was a 2-part episode. I think we talked 2 hours on Stevenage. That might have even been more than 2 parts. I mean,
and a kind of case study into the worst season of football you can pretty much imagine. So it was therapy for me, I think. Good evening.
Good evening, Jonathan. That was quite a big introduction, but well deserved, because you've made some big contributions to the show. And I'm just going to tell you, with the lockdown hit, we were trying to keep our Accrington stuff going. They weren't playing on the field. We were covering Phoenix Rising at the time. They weren't playing. The only league that kept going was the Belarus Premier League.
I should mention that not only that, but because, we were one of the only outlets covering it. I mean, actually, think about that for a second. The only football being played and one of the only, media outlets covering what was going on. I mean, that was a pretty exclusive time for the pod.
It was so much fun, and like you said, it was something where it was unique because there was nobody else that was doing it. And what I liked about it is we obviously had to address the COVID situations, but we were really able to keep it about football. Well, let's turn over to you. And what I wanted to ask you about first is, what were some of your favorite episodes that we did. First on the Belarus League. Let's start with that. We'll get back to Stevenage later.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of think back to the first Belarus episode we did, because when the Belarus League kept playing, I've got a lot of, good friends on social media who cover these various leagues, and I might just name check, Zoria Rondon, who covers Ukraine, Right Bank Warsaw, who covers Poland, Thomas Mortimer, who covers Hungary, and so when the Belarus League came round, I thought, well, there must be somebody who's doing the Belarus League. Within about 5 days, myself and also the guys who were doing the Stay Energetic podcast, they're now doing Belpod and keeping the fire burning for Belarus football. But we realized pretty soon that we're it. If anyone's going to be the experts on the Belarus League, we'd better swat up and figure it out pretty quick. So that feeling of sort of treading in fresh snow, and getting to know a league like that, it was. And luckily that we managed to catch it. I managed to catch it on the very first weekend and follow it right the way through. I think that's amazing. That's something I'll never be able to do again. So, it was quite amazing.
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, and welcome back to the 3rd anniversary extravaganza of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I have a very special guest with me today who we haven't spoken to in a while. One of my favorite people in the whole world, and one of my favorite guests that we've ever had on the show. This guy is as knowledgeable about football as anybody that you will ever meet. He can tell you about everything from the English League to the Spanish League to what's going on in tournaments around the world. But he is absolutely the #1 source on football in Ghana, his home country. Welcome back to the show, Abdulai Suburu. Welcome to the show, Suburu, and thanks for coming on. And how have you been?
Thank you very much, Phil, for having me once again. It's been a while we had a chat on any issue across the world, but thankfully today we are on to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of Across the Pitch. I'm grateful to be on the show again.
Now, you have your website, GhanaFootballNews.com, that you've had for about 2 years now, and I know that you've added some more writers to the staff. How many guys do you have writing over at Ghana Football News now?
Yeah, I think that was August. We celebrated our 2nd anniversary as well. It's been a quite journey. It hasn't been easy, but we've made it, and it's working for us. For myself, I started it all alone, adding one person. By now, I have 4 people as part of me who now work on Ghana Football News. We are growing speedily, but we'll get there one day. Things are moving on well for us. We are achieving what we wanted to do. Basically, to talk on or to speak on players who are from Ghana, wherever they are, whether east of the world, north, central, which other parts of the world, any player from Ghana is. And we can have, or we have a way to get access to them and put a few stories on them to showcase the world that there are a lot of talent. Or yes, Ghana, we are also there. One other thing that excites me about Ghana Football News, you remember our first ever conversation, I spoke of where I am, my region to be precise, the Upper West region, which is the northern part of Ghana, where it's difficult to get people, we haven't been so much use or conversant with social media or activities across Ghana Football News. One other aim of it was to use it to promote players from the region and other sporting activities, and that we are doing it well, especially covering players who are from the Upper West region and are playing in the Ghana Premier League, that's the top league or the elite league in Ghana. They are doing so well in covering them much day, much after, and it's helping. And I think a lot of people are getting to know that there's a country, there's a region in Ghana called Upper West, where when you get there are a lot of talent you can unearth from that place.
It's just fantastic. I love your website because it gives you everything that you need to know about football that's happening in Ghana, and also everything that you need to know about what's happening with players from Ghana that are playing from around the world. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you are the biggest and most knowledgeable football fan that I have ever met, because you follow every team, every player, and now you're a Liverpool guy, and you guys beat up on my Arsenal pretty well yesterday, but the team that we do agree on, of course, is the team that we talk about on this show, which is Accrington Stanley, and you're an Accrington Stanley supporter, and you've got the Accrington Supporters Club of Ghana going on down there, and good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on. And welcome back to the Across the Pitch 3-year anniversary extravaganza. I'm very excited because the next guest that we have coming up is the chairman of the Accrington Stanley Supporters Trust. And to me, not only is he just one of my favorite people in the entire world, but he is just the face of Accrington Stanley to me. When I think of everything that I love about Accrington Stanley, the family atmosphere, everything that goes on with the supporters and the community involvement, all of it kind of goes back to one person, and that one person is Peter Leatham. And it's just an honor to have you back on the show with us. And thank you so much for everything that you've done over the past 3 years with scheduling guests for us. And, we wouldn't have been able to do Across the Pitch and get to where we are without you. So first, I just want to say thank you, Peter.
Well, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, that. And I'm just a very small part of a large wheel, really, within the Supporters Trust. Obviously, I obviously try and help what and wherever I can to make things happen. And fortunately, I've got the time to spend to help things along, really. So thank you for your kind words. It's always appreciated. But you guys have done a tremendous job over the past 3 years in spreading the Accrington Stanley word worldwide, I suppose, really. And gosh, where's years gone to, really? I haven't seen that long since we first kicked off, I suppose, really.
Well, that is the goal. Is it kind of started off where we wanted to spread the word of Accrington Stanley in the United States, but it really has gotten to be more than that, because, of course, Tony, who's one of our co-hosts, he's in Canada. And then, of course, the next person that I'm going to be talking to today is Abdulai Suburu, who I met on Twitter a few years ago. And he started the Accrington Stanley Supporters Club in Ghana. We also have Matt McLennan, who is down in Australia, getting things started there. We've had folks from France on the show, Spain. I mean, it really is that Accrington Stanley is getting to be a global brand, and that's what we're hoping to continue with the show, is just to spread that word. And I think that just this week we had Neil Edmonds on the show, who played with Stanley back in the early 1990s, and he lives in the United States now. And that episode has already gotten close to 300 streams this week. So I mean that just shows that there is interest on not only both sides of the pond, but around the world. I think we had about 70 streams from Ireland on that episode. So I mean, I think that one of the things that it always comes back to is that Accrington is such a small town in terms of population, and then you have obviously Blackburn and Burnley on either side that are huge, massive clubs, and then 20 miles down the road you've got Man United, Man City. So I mean there's just so much competition in the local area. But Accrington is just such a great story that if you get people from around the world that don't have ties to an English club already, the Accrington Stanley story is one that people really grab a hold of. And then, it gets back to everything that you're doing in making Accrington just such a community-oriented club. Everything that Andy's doing with, like the shirt giveaways, things like that. I mean, Accrington Stanley, to me, it could become the world's underdog team, if you will.
Yeah, I think we're well on the road to doing that, Phil, at the moment. As you say, we haven't got a lot in Accrington, but what we have is a football league club, which is obviously one of only not 92 towns or cities in the UK to have one, because obviously places like Manchester, Liverpool, and London have more than one. But we're one of a relatively small number of UK locations to have a football league club. Certainly one of the smallest in terms of the population of the town. The population of Accrington itself is only about 35,000, which is relatively small compared to the majority of football league clubs.
I mean, 20,000 less than the capacity at Sunderland Stadium.
Absolutely right. And, we're living the dream here. To have a team in League One, a town of that size, it is quite an achievement. And it's testament to the work that many people have done over the years, many of which have been mentioned or featured on the show. Obviously, in recent times, the work of Andy Holt and the sort of longevity of John Coleman and Jimmy Bell, all added tremendously to what we've got today. We're just about to reach a fairly pivotal point in football in the UK, and probably the next week, I would suggest, because as you're probably aware, there's been a final review of football structure in the UK, and I personally and Andy Holt have been fortunate to contribute to the fan-led review, the fan-led review, headed by Trey Parrish, a government minister, and her report gets published later on this week, and it will call for reform of finance, governance, ownership, etc. Should be a big reset for football in the country, which will make a big difference, hopefully, to clubs of Accrington, Stanley, and more sustainable in the long term, which is what it's all about. We can't risk our football clubs going out of business. Obviously, we've got well-publicised Berries and the Boltons, the Oldham and Vales. There's many clubs having problems financially at the moment, and with all the money at the top of the Premiership and sort of multi-billion pound building on TV rights, more recently I think with NBC in the States, there's money rushing around the game, but it's all at the top and it's not filtering its way down, and that's a big part of what I do. I'm fortunate to sit on the National Council of the Football Supporters Association, representing League One and League Two clubs, and this is a testament to a lot of whereas within the Football Supporters Association, we did over 150 hours worth of evidence to the commission, and it looks like it's going to bear fruit. So fingers crossed, with quite an important few weeks coming up, Phil.
Well, it's incredible to hear everything that's going on in terms of the work that's being done to make sure that, like you said, we don't have teams going out of business like we have over the past few years and have, situations like we had at Barrie. And I think that one of the things to really kind of look at is not only what we were talking about earlier about the current Accrington Stanley, but also the history of this is something where obviously the current Accrington Stanley goes back 50 years. And over that 50 years, like you said, there's just been so many people who have played a role in keeping the club going. And I think that's something that we've focused on here over the past few months, or especially over the past year and a half with Darren's Veterans Series, is really trying to get at least one person on from every era and kind of piece that puzzle together. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, and welcome back to the final segment of the Across the Pitch third anniversary extravaganza. Up until now, we've interviewed some of the, I would say, past of Across the Pitch, if you will, in terms of the past co-hosts and contributors from the early days of the show. Now we kind of move to the present and future of the show, if you will, with the two current co-hosts of Across the Pitch. First and foremost, Darren Woodhead, who is the preeminent historian in Accrington Stanley. He first came onto my personal radar when his book 50 Years of Accrington Stanley came up for pre-order. Shortly after that, I contacted Darren and said, hey, I need to get you on the show. Went so well that I would say within about a month of his first time on the show, he started bringing in some guests and contributing. I know that I think Brett Ormerod was the first guest that Darren had lined up for us. And since then, his Legend series has become by far the most popular segment on the show, with certain episodes, particularly David Lloyd has gotten over 500 streams at this point. And then we also have Tony Robinson, who I think that we've described him as the jalapenos on the pizza pie. When Tony joined the staff, it really kind of completed Across the Pitch. He started off as by far our most loyal listener, and I know that back when the show first started, anytime I would post an Accrington Stanley related article or some kind of a show regarding Accrington Stanley, the very first person I would hear from would be Tony Robinson. And then after a few months, I invited him on the show, and, we just really hit it off. And from 5 minutes into the first time that Tony came onto the show, I knew that I wanted to have him be a part of it. And ever since Tony has joined, I really think that the show has found its direction, because earlier in the initial intro to the show, I kind of talked about how when things started out, we were covering so many different topics at once that it got to be a bit too much, and how we've actually been able to streamline towards Accrington Stanley over the last 6 months or so. With Tony also taking over social media duties and doing a brilliant job on that. And I have never been more excited for the future of the show. And it's mostly has to do with these two guys, Darren and Tony. So first and foremost, thank you for everything you've done to contribute to the show in the past and in everything that we're looking forward to do in the future. And Darren, let me start off with you. And I know that you said you wanted to kind of tell your story about your first time on the show and go over some memories of favorite guests and things like that. So let's start with you, Darren.
Yeah, good to speak to you again, Phil. Once again. Yeah,
always.
When we did have this idea, this concept of what we were going to do tonight, I had to think quite hard, actually, because so much has happened in the last 3 years, I've had to go back and do a little bit of research into highlights, etc., because there's just so much happening. And we're used to recording every week and guests, and you forget sometimes just how much we've accomplished, don't you, Phil?
Oh yeah, I mean it's just hard to wrap my hands around just the amount of content. I mean, if you had told me that we would keep things going for 3 years when we first started, I'd have said, well, wow, that's really something to keep at, something for 3 years like that. But if you'd have told me that we would have over 250 numbered episodes, close to 300 total recordings, I'd have never believed that.
No, and all credit, well, lots of credit goes to Tony for that as well, because I know both of us, we tend to go off in different directions, and we've had work commitments, and Tony's kept everything ticking over nicely. We call him Seamus Keneally, don't we, in midfield? Yeah, he's kept everything going when we've been struggling. So fair play to Tony. So yeah, I mean, obviously I came on the show as a guest talking about the book, early days. Wasn't long before I couldn't help myself and joined the team, etc. And like you said, and getting guests on board. I remember the first interview I did was with Paul Mullen. I'm very nervous at the time. I'd never interviewed anybody in my life.
That was still one of the best ones too.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully Paul's a great guy anyway, and it was very easy. And it's been easy with all of them. Everybody's been good, and I'd love to give everybody a shout out really who we've had on. It's difficult. I'm going to pick a few out, but I do feel bad about not mentioning everybody, but it's just impossible with probably had approaching 200 guests altogether, aren't we, between everybody, but current players and ex-players, all sorts of people, non-Stanley people. But I mean, two that stick out for me when we started the Legend series, we had Jay Flannery and Jamie Spear on early days, episodes 77, 79. I felt like we really started to hit our stride there, really. I mean, we got two good guests on in space of a week. They both did really well. They both spoke well. They were well received, and we just, I think both of us, myself and you, Phil, we thought we had a good format then, didn't we? We were just starting to get into the way we were working together. I don't know if you agree.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like at that point was really when we started coming into the idea of piecing together the history of Accrington Stanley, one puzzle piece at a time, and trying to get somebody in from each era. And I know that when we hit them in, they were from the kind of early 2000s era when the John Coleman and Jimmy Bell were first coming in. So those were kind of the first guys that we had from that time period. And, since then, we've gotten somebody from just about every time period. I mean, you just do an incredible job with, digging up these guests and getting them to come on the show. And like our recent one, our last one that you got was Neil Edmonds, and he's closing in on 300 streams already.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really good one. He just ticked so many boxes with him living in the States now, being from Accrington. It just seemed to, we all connected with him, and it went down really well. Another Accrington guy, obviously Bumble. That was quite a bit of kudos for us to get David Lloyd on the show for the first time. I think that put us on the map, really. We could then put our name out there on Twitter, etc., and we got a bit of credibility. Obviously, real privilege for me because I've been listening to him all my life on commentary, on sport, etc., and to get him be on the same podcast as him twice. First time with yourself and Arran, and then we did the fantasy teams, didn't we? I picked my all-time favourite team, and from the Crown Ground days, and he did his Peel Park. I think that was right in the middle of lockdown. So that was memorable.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys. There's been a handful of guests where it's just like you look at it and say, wow, I can't believe that we really had him on the show.
Yep. I mean, and then going on to something else that was completely different, and I'm sure you'll remember this, Phil, is when we interviewed Russ Cuddy. Yeah, I mean, we actually interviewed Russ when it was obvious, and we knew that he was nearing the end of his life, sadly. But I know it meant a great deal to his family that we recorded that. I mean, he was in great form. The circumstances, he got all his memories out there, and it was quite emotional to do that. We actually interviewed George Hudson on the same day with his son Al, although we decided to put that one out as a a written article.
Yeah, you wrote up an article on that.
Yeah, communication was difficult, but a pleasure to speak to those guys before they passed away and to capture those memories. I mean, they're there forever, aren't they now?
It really was. And that was, at that point, was kind of the first time I said to myself, we're actually doing something important here. We're preserving history for the family. And, obviously it was his daughter that had gotten in contact with us and asked us if we could have him on. And then that's going to be something where, 50 years from now, his great-great-grandchildren will be able to hear, what he did and his history with Accrington Stanley. And sadly, we've had several guests now who have passed away. Of course, Daryl Grove of Total Soccer Show, who we had on, and he was battling cancer and has sadly lost his battle. And just to be able to preserve the memories of these folks, it really it does make it so I feel like we preserve something important that their friends and family are going to be able to appreciate.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
So, Tony, now, like I was saying earlier, when you made your first ever appearance on the show as a guest, within 10 minutes into the recording, I knew immediately that I wanted to have you be a bigger part of the show going forward because, one, your passion for Accrington Stanley, it's just unrivaled in terms of folks on this side of the pond, and I knew that you were going to be a perfect fit for the show. And at this point, you've been not only the jalapenos on top of the pizza, but the crust at the bottom, holding things together.
The whole pizza. I'm the whole pizza.
Yeah, you're just about the whole pizza. I mean, maybe Darren and I get the sauce and the cheese at this point, but you're the crust and the toppings. And I mean, since you've taken over the social media, you've just done such a fantastic job with that. But what I wanted to do was sit back here at this point and have you tell us about some of your favorite shows, favorite guests, things like that.
Yeah, that's a tough one, Phil, because really all the guests that we've had on have been really good. And I think the one thing that sticks out in my mind, being a part of this process, is the involvement that the individuals get in the program and the reception that we get from these people. Everybody comes on, wants to do it, enjoys it. And in fact, when they get off, they send us notes and say what a good experience it was and wish us well. I think that's really the satisfying factor to me. And I mean, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you, Phil. I mean, you had this dream of doing something in the way of a podcast, and fate led you down this path, and fate led me to be part of this great run, and with Darren as well. And I think when you asked me to start doing the interviews, I'd not really been involved in that kind of football before, but there's nothing like jumping in with both feet. And my first interview was actually with Callum Johnson, and I probably was most nervous for that one. And that was going back, that's February 1920. And then we went into a spell when COVID hit of doing players. It seemed like every day, if not every day, every other day. And we did quite a run. And that April, and it was I think basically late March, and then definitely I think we did 40 total episodes in April of 2020. That was just I don't know how we did that month. and we were doing this just before the three interviews that really started the process for me and really got me hooked on it was as I said, the Callum Johnson one, Seamus Keneally we did in the end of February. And then just before COVID broke out, really, we did Joe Pritchard on the 9th of March. And those are three really, really, really top players. And They were all great, and they came on and give us a great interview. I think overall is the way the players, the staff, and any guest that comes on has been so accommodating. That's just been a really pleasing feeling for me. Some surprises, and one that surprised me was one that we did before we sort of got to Stanley centric, and that was we were doing some of the Premier League worst signings, and we did one. You and I did it with about Burnley's worst signings from 2000 to 2010.
That was a big episode. I remember that.
Yeah, and it really took off because it's the 5th most listened to one we've got. And so you don't know. Sometimes the subject matter just hits with people, and they take to it. And that was one of them. And I guess the last one we did with Neil Edmonds is a favorite because of an Accringtonian living in the States following Stanley. There's a lot of, as Darren said, it ticks a lot of the boxes, and I really enjoyed that one. I think overall the best one for me would have to be the one we did in over 2 hours, and we made it a 3-parter with John.
Oh yeah, that was incredible. That was just amazing stuff because it was. It was something where we had waited so long to talk to John Coleman, and we had really built it up. We had done a movie trailer and all of that, and then it beyond lived up to everything we built it up to be.
Well, I think it was right in the middle of the start of the lockdown and COVID, because I think we did it in May of 2020.
It was right around the time that the League One season would have been ending, but unfortunately the last 9 matches had been scratched off.
Well, with his busy schedule, I mean, we were fortunate to have him, and we appreciate him coming on. But I think COVID allowed him to have the time, and he obviously, when he did the interview, he missed football. And he really enjoyed the chat, because obviously spending that much time with us is something that he did on his own accord, and I will be always thankful for that. But that's probably my favorite. And overall, it's just been a great experience. And again, thanks to you for asking me to be part of this great team and the evolution of across the pitch from the start, where you did with Matt and Arran. And it's grown into this, and long may it continue. Really enjoyed the ride so far, Phil.